Brewtallyspeaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. For over 30 years, Rockabilia has been the go-to destination for all things band merch. With over 500,000 items in their online store and collaborations with today's hottest bands, you're sure to find something you love. Use our code BREW10 at checkout and take 10% off your total order. So go pick up your favorite new piece of merch now over at Rockabilia.com. And now, on to the show.
Say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Brewtallyspeaking podcast. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest is Justin of BRKN LOVE. Their latest record, The Program, is out now via Spine Farm Records. This is a band, maybe for some of you, a lot of you, I don't know, maybe you're aware of, maybe you've heard the name, you've seen it, BRKN LOVE, and maybe you just never checked out the band, and you just kind of keep seeing it. And this is a great example of why I'm very appreciative of the job I have, where I can actually take the time to try to listen to the things I get sent all the time, daily, by publicists and labels and so forth. And I think a thing that really stood out for this record and this band for me is, you've heard me over the years kind of jokingly say, I don't need the more adjectives you use to describe a band, the less interested I get with each one. Because it's like, if you have to sell me that hard, you shouldn't have to. And it's also really amusing sometimes, the things people use where it's like, the best frog folklore core of the last 10 years returns with their most ambitious record yet. And you're like, and so from this other band you've never heard of says it's the new awakening of this scene, and you're like, okay, that's too much. You're doing too much. This one basically just said, like, this is a great rock record, and in today's landscape of rock, when you think of it, like, that could mean a wide array of things to a lot of people. So it kind of, the less verbiage used actually worked to its advantage, where I was more intrigued to see, well, okay, what is this? What does it have to offer? And upon throwing on the program and getting into 2020 Vision, which is the first song on the record, I was like, oh, this feels like, I'd been on a kind of a big Muse and Queens of the Stone Age and a few other bands kind of that ilk, like that kind of mid-90s, like late 90s, I guess I should say, and early 2000s kind of alt rock, for lack of a better term. And boy, did this just really satiate that itch of like what I've been into on my own lately. And then you just listen to the rest of the record, and it's so solid and it's so good. And then it made me go back and listen to the other records really quickly, gearing up for this chat with Justin. And I mean, this is a quick chat. I'll tell you that ahead of time. And for the most of it, I really just essentially sucked the dick of BRKN LOVE, of how much I'm a new fan of this band and how much I love this record. But I think that's a thing I've been on the journey of is being a fan of things again. And I will say, doing this podcast now for going, I think, on 9 years and really close to 500 episodes at this point, it has really made me fall out of love of listening to music and wanting to discover new bands and so forth. And I really hope, at the very least, after the end of this conversation, you're a fan of Justin, you're a fan of this band, and you give the program a fair listen. And I hope you get turned on to it, because I legitimately do think this is a really great record. All of that said, like I said, this is a really short conversation. Let's get into it with Justin, and I'll talk to you on the other side of it. So, I'm going to say something I don't know. I don't think I've ever admitted on the show, but I think is a great thing. I had heard of your band name in kind of passing, like people kind of in certain circles kind of being like, oh, you should check out this band if you kind of like these style of bands. And when getting the email for this new record, I was like, interesting kind of album cover, the way you like spell the band name and all that kind of stuff. I was like, all right, I guess now's the time to like jump in and kind of see what this band's about. And gotta say, given the record of the spin the last like few days leading up to this, it's one of those where sometimes I think to myself, I'm becoming a crotchety old man like my dad, where I'm like, anytime I hear this, it just reminds me of something. I'd rather go listen to that band that this band's influenced by. But there's something so fun about your new record, and it does have tinges to bands that I love and have loved for like decades at this point. But there's something unique that you guys bring to it that makes it feel fresh and exciting, and is one of those things where not often, but on rare instances like this, I'm really glad that I actually took the time from the publicist to kind of check something out, because I think this is going to be a really fucking big record for you guys, especially coming out around right now when the seasons are changing. This is, and it's exactly what I've done the last few days. It is a roll the windows down, crank this motherfucker up, and just fucking vibe. So congrats on a really great record.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad you say that. I think it's cool when you have an experience like that, because I think Geddy Lee might have said it. It's like, I think like originality is when you can hear all the things, in somebody's music. You go, oh, it kind of reminds me of this and that, but then you can't really put a finger on if it's exactly that,
Yeah.
And then your thing kind of pokes through. So I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah, no, I mean, like straight out the gate with and I'm kind of bad with song titles, because a lot of times at my job I don't have my phone on me, so I hear, and then I have to kind of be like, I think that was track 3 that I really like this part or whatever. But opening track is 2020 Vision, correct?
Yes, correct.
Man, that is the best song that Muse never wrote. You they should come to you and be like, hey, we want you to write some songs for us, because that is a monster fucking way to start the record.
Thanks, man. We kind of knew when we wrote it. We were like, this is the opening track. You just know when it's the opening track, Do
you feel like that will become the live staple to open the shows at this point, just kind of set the tone and the vibe?
We've quite literally opened every single show with that for the past like 6 or 7 months. So probably, yeah.
So what I know that you guys are, and correct me if I'm wrong, a power trio, essentially. There's 3 of you.
We're not a trio. We're a 4-piece. I mean, there's only 3 of us that are like original members in the band still.
Okay.
We don't have like a drummer at the moment. So
okay.
Technically it is a 3-piece then, I guess. We're not like a trio in the sense of like guitar, bass, drums,
Okay. Well, what I was going to say was, especially more because and this is more to the point, but being the songwriter and the guitarist and all that kind of stuff, I feel like I would really love to kind of break down your songwriting process, because I wonder if a vocal melody is what inspires your guitar riffs or vice versa, because I could see it going either way, honestly.
It's interesting. It's like I feel like they both coexist at the same time, because I'm not really thinking about one without the other,
Okay.
I'm kind of the mind that as far as riffing goes, especially with like the kind of rock that we make, it's not going to be super technical. It's not going to be super all over the place. There's only a few places I think we can go, really. That to me, the vocal melody is the most important part. So, when we are writing songs, I'm less privy to like creating a track and then writing something to it, because I feel like riffs can kind of go in so many ways, and we could play a million riffs and they're all going to sound great. But if the melody and the vocal isn't strong, it's like, here's just another rock riff, So I kind of, when I'm coming up with a riff, I'll immediately start singing something just to see if I can come up with something that sticks with it. Unless a riff is just really, really good, it can stand on its own, but it's kind of tough to write like guitar riff hooks, I would say. And I think that we lean more on the vocals for the hooks.
Yeah.
Well,
it's funny. I was in listening to the record. There is a thing that I reference all the time, and it's surprising because I can see the views that it gets on YouTube. So I'm like, I know a fuckload of people know about this thing, but no one I have ever encountered personally has ever heard or seen this. Mm-hmm. But there's a video of Dave Grohl, and it's called Dave Grohl Writing the Hits. and
Okay.
it's him being interviewed by Kyle Gass at Tenacious D at some festival.
Yeah.
And he like Kyle Gass is like, well, how do you write hits? And he goes, well, I mean, the deep cuts don't keep the mansions running, so you know you gotta write the big songs with the big hooks. And then he
Yeah.
was talking about how and it's like it comes across like such a fucking joke, like that he's
Mhm.
in on the joke, like I'm not being real. But then everything he kind of walks you through, you're like, I feel like that is the secret. But he's like, just keep it simple, like a bumper sticker. And he just goes like, life's a bitch, keep on trucking. And then he just comes up with like a little random chord progression, and that's the hook.
Yeah.
And then he goes, you know who's great at writing hooks? Aerosmith. But they start off every song with the hook.
Yeah.
Janie's Got a Gun. How does it start? Love in an Elevator. How does it
Yeah.
start? Like it just gets right to the thing. And so
Yeah.
he goes, when I write my own songs, I think about how the crowd's going to react. And a lot of times it's not about my vocal, it's about the guitar riff, and it gets people moving. And then from there, I kind of have to match a cadence. And I
Mhm.
feel like when I was listening to the record, I just kept thinking, I was like, you know who writes fucking hits? These guys. Like they're just following that formula and that pattern of it's very catchy and it works. But again, I just kind of when listening to it, it's like how does your songwriting process start, and how long did it take you to kind of find it? Because I feel like it like you said, there's so many ways you could take something, and to be completely not overbearing, but just kind of overdoing it would be so simple.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very easy to get lost in the sauce of like guitar, and I would describe myself as a guitar player first. I definitely enjoy playing guitar more than I like singing. Um, so I spend predominantly most of my time in my studio here just playing guitar. Um, but you have to still think about what is necessary for the song. Like, of course, it'd be cool to just shred a solo and do sweeps and two-hand tapping. Like, yeah, that's cool, but only guitar players are going to care about that. And you know, when we're laying stuff out, especially when we're making a record, like a big process of it is like, how much of the fat can we trim? How much can we take away? Is it really necessary to do all these things? Like, what is most effective? And I find personally, and also to my taste, I've always enjoyed simpler music and more straight ahead rock songs. Of course, I do love my genty progressive metal and all that kind of stuff. I do like that stuff, but my ear is attracted to simplicity, and we're also trying to. I'm not trying to be a band that's like pigeonholed or kind of like secular. I want to appeal to a wider audience, which is why even on this record, there's more elements of there's like funk elements and disco and R&B. There's like different places we're going. It's even a little poppy at times. I'm not trying to put any parameters on what this is supposed to be. So I think that as soon as you start walking that line of complexity, you start turning away a lot of more casual music listeners that I would love to invite into this world of what we do. Of course, I don't want to end up being like your favorite musician's band. People say like, oh, your favorite musician's musician. It's like Jeff Beck is every favorite guitar player's guitar player.
Right.
While that's really cool, and of course, admiration on any level is obviously amazing. I like the Beatles. I like bands like that where it's like pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple stuff that is like deceptively tricky in a
Hmm.
way. Like people might hear the stuff and go, okay, this is pretty simple, but try singing and playing that at the same time. you know?
Well, that's what like I had kind of wondered initially, like trying to look at socials and stuff like that in live videos. I was like, is this because it looked like it's a three piece? So I was like looking at certain shots. I go, well, is that somebody else? And I'm kind of seeing them from a different perspective, from a different camera angle or whatever. Or is it four people? Like I can't quite tell. So it was a
Yeah.
thing where because of that, it's like I wondered if you needed like an extra person up there to help you kind of navigate being able to play and sing to kind of make sure the best representation of what you guys are doing is coming through, because I feel like that's probably something that you guys pride yourself on is the live show and making sure you sound as good as these records, if not in some cases better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do, we have another guitar player, which really helps greatly. Um, but yeah, I mean, the live show is really important to us, and that's why we record the music the way we do. It's like one of the beautiful things, I think, obviously it's completely biased, is that our band sounds to me kind of exactly the same or better live, because it's kind of the same thing. You know, we don't play to tracks or do anything like that. It's like the show is how we recorded it, you know, and we embellish and we add things live. You know, that complexity that we were kind of talking about, the live show is where we will kind of push the envelope. We'll add guitar solos where there shouldn't be, or we'll do crazy drum fills or something, or I'll sing something way higher than it's supposed to be. That's what I think, that embellishing live is part of what makes a live show so fun and fresh. Like, I don't want to give people the exact same thing when they come see us. You know, a lot of bands nowadays, I'm not knocking on any of them, but you come and see the show and they hit, you know, play on their laptop, and then you're kind of just hearing the record, you know, and we don't do that. You know, I want people to get an authentic, real experience. I want it to be a unique experience every single time you come and see us. And if anybody listening to this has seen us before, they could probably attest to that. If they've seen us 5 nights in a row, it's likely we played a different set. We've done a different order. We've played different versions of the songs. Like, we have the freedom to just, like, you know, maybe I'll play a thing and then I'll screw up before the second verse and I'll be like, hold on, do it again. You know, we could just do that. You know? There's a freedom to that.
Well, I listening to you guys and kind of going back and listening to some of the older material, it feels like a lot of these songs are very lived in. Like, you kind of all know them very well. But I also wonder how much of that is possibly because of recording this live in a room together versus, like, I'm playing my parts, drums play their parts, and then everything gets kind of recorded individually. Because it just feels like it's very, like, you can feel everyone kind of vibing off of each other, even on a record. And to me, it's like that usually only happens like when you listen to older records and they had to do it that way because they had tape and it was expensive. Like, there's just kind of this magic and this warmth kind of to it. And I feel like you guys have really tapped into that. So I wondered if you guys are more of a live in the room kind of recording.
Sometimes it depends the record. I mean, our first record was practically all live off the floor, to tape as well, actually. So that was like an analog record, and that was definitely an interesting experience. The second record, it depends. Like, we'll track things together and then maybe redub something later. But still, even if we're doing it in that way, I like to do full takes instead of chopping things up and applying it all, you know, because I still want it to be a performance at the end of the day. I mean, if you listen to the record, it's like there's fully mistakes on the record. Like, there's guitar flubs, there's bass flubs. I'm not singing everything perfectly in key. There's parts where my voice cracks. Like, but we keep those things because that's human. And I know in today's climate, it's like you have the ability to fix everything and anything and make anything sound good. I mean, you can make a really bad singer sound like a good singer these days very easily, you know? But there's something about that real raw energy that I think is so important to music that I don't want the machines to take over, you know?
Is that something have you always felt that way about the art that you create, or has that changed over time?
Yeah, always. I mean, before I started making rock music, I was actually doing a lot of pop music, and there was actually a period of time where I almost ended up being a Disney artist, believe it or not. And I was doing a lot of stuff. I mean, I was working with like Hollywood Records and stuff when I was like 15 years old, and of course, in that world, it's very calculated. You know, a producer would build a track, and then you would do everything to a track, and it was more like producer music, you know, and everything was down to a science. Everything was super clean, and I always hated it because my influences, even as a little kid, were old rock bands. I mean, I grew up listening to Zeppelin and Sabbath and the Beatles and Kiss and Aerosmith, and you know, I always valued and was so impressed by how they could just do what they did, and I always loved listening to the live records because, you know, I can give you 4 different versions of Whole Lotta Love from different time periods at different venues that I like because of XYZ reasons. And I always just felt like, you know, in a way, when you're doing it super digitally, or, you know, fixing everything, not that it's cheating, it just felt like it wasn't real, you know, like I always thought that you know, the reason all those old rock singers, a lot of them could keep their voice too, is because there was actually guitar solos, or there was musical breaks. I mean, songs weren't all 3 minutes and 30 seconds. There was like 6-minute tunes, and it gives the singer like 2 minutes to just like not sing so they can keep their instrument, you know? And I don't know. I kind of was like hard-headed as a kid, and I might still be that way, and you know, a little bit less then, I would hope, but I've always had that sort of a mindset that a band is supposed to play. And that's, to me, it's like insane that, you know, it's kind of the prerequisite to just be a professional musician. You should know how to play well. You should be able to just play. And there shouldn't be anything that exists that makes it easier, because if you can't simply play your song, you know, if your tracks go down, you can't play the show. It's like, I think that's embarrassing, personally, you know, because how can you not play your songs? You know, like when we get in a room and we play and we rehearse, that's how it's supposed to be done. You know,
Yeah.
it's like every kid starts, if they're lucky enough to play with their friends, you know, in their mom's garage or something, or in somebody's basement or whatever, and that's how you start getting into it. And then only down the line do you find all these like easy, you know, corners that you can cut. Especially nowadays, again, with all the tracks and stuff, it's like, not only is it commonplace with a lot of these bands, but it's actually encouraged by a lot of people. So it's almost weird to not do it. And you know, I couldn't tell you how many times we're the only band on a tour where we're just like we're actually playing live. You know.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like at this point, probably safe to assume, but at the same time, I could see a lot of benefits, obviously, of why people switch over to this. But I feel like you're going to be more like, here's my actual pedal board, it's getting plugged into my amp, and you're actually hearing it mic'd up, versus, you know, here's my Kemper, here's my DI like input thing, and it's running through front of house, and that's what you're hearing, versus actual stage volume and everything. But it's funny, like I somewhat recently went to a show, and I was just telling a friend of mine this, like, where I was like, man, I don't feel like the entry point for like when you go see like live bands, everyone sounds fucking great now. Like they're like, it used to be like, you might see a package tour and you're like, man, that first band, dog shit. They haven't played enough. They don't have good gear. Like, just, you know, it's not there. Yeah. But it's kind of the excitement of going to see a band. It's like, now it's like everyone sounds great. Like the entry point of it is insane.
You're nailing it. I mean, everyth's become so homogenized because everything is good now. Like, we still use amps, we still use pedals. We're like dinosaurs, apparently. And that's out of principle. I don't knock on Kempers and Axe Effects. Like, they sound really good, you know? So it's just kind of, we like this stuff, and I like the way it feels on our fingers. But the element of failure is what makes it exciting to us, is that my amp has blown up several times on stage, you know? Like, things go wrong, and that's kind of what makes it unique. And like you said, everybody sounds good these days because half of them aren't even playing, or like the vocals are all pre-recorded anyways. So of course they're going to sound good. You're listening to the record, you know? And again, I don't want to knock bands that do it. I understand the reasons, and I'm very open to that stuff, you know, from another band's perspective. It's not something I would personally do, or my group would probably ever adopt. But it just adds an element of danger. And I think that's why we like doing what we do, because I like knowing that things could just go wrong. It's like a controlled chaos, and it gives us a chance to really prove what we do for real. Because now, you know, even like what you're saying, it's like, it's almost impressive. You're like, wait, you don't use all this stuff? And it makes it that much cooler for people when it's like, that's just, what do you mean? We're just playing the songs? Like, why is that impressive? You know?
Well, do you find that, like, after seeing a show, if someone's not seen you, like if you're opening a show for someone or whatever, do you find that the general consensus is people coming up to you going like, man, it was crazy to like see your amp and actually feel like you playing like, is that a common occurrence?
Actually, all the time. I'm not gonna
really?
lie. Not only does it happen with the fans, it happens with other bands too. And obviously I'm not going to name any names, but like, it happens all the time when we're on these package tours, where even other people in the other groups are like, damn, you guys sound good. Like, it's like, yeah, because there's stage volume, like there's air moving around. Like, you can actually stand side stage in one of our gigs, and hear everything.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not just drums killing you, you know, side stage. We don't even use in-ear monitors. Like we're still on monitors too. And that's just how we like to do it, you know. And I don't want to sound like I'm some like, I know I'm only 27 years old. And I don't want to like some 60-year-old rock dad. It's like things used to be better, and this generation doesn't know it. That's not true. It's just how we prefer to do it. And I want to make everything as real as possible. And I'm looking forward to the day where people really start caring about that again, because of course there used to be a time where if you got caught lip syncing, it would end your whole career. And now it's like, it's just common now. It's like everybody does it. So I think people's expectations or people's standards have dropped greatly on what is actually, what shouldn't be allowed. Like we don't expect that anymore, and people just don't care. And I want people to care again, you know?
Well, I would almost, and forgive if you've answered this question a ton, but I'm kind of intrigued. You were saying like you're almost a Disney artist and all that kind of stuff as a kid. Was there like, I don't want to necessarily say from like your parents or whatever, but I'm just gonna project and say like I could see that if you knew that about yourself even back then, that I could see based on other situations very similar where it's like parents and or a manager or someone would be like, man, you're throwing away this great opportunity, but it's like, but it's not who you are. You're being disingenuous to who you are and the pureness of why you want to get into this thing. So am I kind of right with that assumption? Or yeah,
very much right. I definitely got a lot of flack from my family, from my manager at the time, from a lot of people I was working with. I mean, even the producers and the A&Rs that were trying to work with me, it's like, they're like, look at the balls on this kid. How the hell can he do this? You know, like, and me so full of myself at like 15 years old going, I don't want to do this. It's crazy. You know, it's like they're putting huge amounts of money and, they're offering you $1 million record deal. And I didn't want to do it. You know, of course I got a lot of flack for doing that kind of stuff. And I'd rather be myself and play to nobody than fake it for the rest of my life. And I think credibility is very important too. I was always told the story of like, well, you could do this now and then you could do what you want later. But there's certain things where that works, but I don't think you can cross over from like, I mean, if I could share some of these songs with you, they were hilarious. I mean, it was like fully boy band, like Justin Bieber-esque kind of stuff. And you can't just do that and then try to write a Soundgarden type song and have people take you seriously, especially in rock where authenticity is so valued, And
well, I was gonna say, look at Chris Daughtry. I think he's a great example of someone that, he came up through the avenue that he did and then was on a bigger record label and stuff. And it isn't until really the last, 2 records where he's kind of changed the sound, gone a little heavier, kind of done a lot more with his voice. And he's like, this is what I always wanted to do. The label just kept telling me I can't because I'm Chris Daughtry from American Idol from 15, 20 years ago. And it's like, it's crazy to see someone of that level with that success and is a talent being told you can't be who you want to be because it's detrimental to your own career.
Right. Well, I think what's so amazing about today's climate too, amongst all the negativity that I've been spewing, is that genres have kind of become meaningless at this point. Everything's genre bending, and I think that's a really good thing. Like the keeping on what you're supposed to be and what people are supposed to like is kind of done. Like you're not going to ruin your career now if you decide to drop a disco song like Kiss did in the late 70s or something, but back then it was a huge deal. And like nowadays it's like bands like Sleep Token, stuff like that can do like this whole metal genty thing. And then halfway through the song switch to like an R&B almost fusion thing. And it's like, wow, this is so cool. And I think because of this now, again, and even with this new record, it's like I'm able to put the different elements, like a little bit of disco, like a little bit of funk or a little bit of pop. And I'm not really scared of what's going to happen because I think people have more than ever are more open to just everything. People are just music fans now. And even with like the resurgence of bands like Creed or like Nickelback, it's like all of a sudden people are like, wait, we don't have to pretend to not like these guys anymore. Like we can actually just say it out in the open. It's kind of an amazing thing. So yeah, maybe now it's like the best time ever to really be an artist in that sense, you know?
Kind of slowly wrapping up because I know you got another one here pretty soon. But what is, I mean, I love kind of getting to talk to a lot of these people, like, Tyler Bryant in the Shakedown. Like, I've had him on, had Austin Mead on and stuff like that, like JJ Wild, like something that kind of blends, like you're saying, genres where it's not necessarily a thing. It's a hybrid of a lot of different things. And
Mm.
growing up, mainly in the late 80s, early 90s, like my metal was poppy. Like Motley Crue was poppy, but they
Yeah.
were also punk and metal and, everything in between. So, like you said, I love all kinds of music. So I
Yeah.
love seeing stuff like this. But I wonder, is there a place that you don't even feel like you're able to tap into currently where you're at? And if so, what is it?
Ooh. That's a really good question. Like, I don't think we're ever gonna do anything that's like maybe like country-esque or something like that, you know? I could see myself doing like a solo project at some point and doing some more like folky acoustic stuff, which maybe we could bridge onto like the Americana stuff, but maybe not country so much. I was gonna say hip hop, but like hip hop has a big influence on a lot of our grooves, you know? Like there's a few tracks on this new record that like a track like Unholy that people will eventually hear. It's like that's just a hip hop drum part that we created a loop out of, you know? And we like set up the drums in a certain way to make it sound like that like 90s like G-funk kind of hip hop sound. But
Yeah.
I would say maybe country is one thing that it doesn't really speak to me too much. I don't hate it at all, but I can't really see myself going down that road. But although I do, enjoy some of it, but I don't know. You can't say I don't know what's on or off the table. I mean, a great song is a great song. Like there's really only two types of music, and it's good or bad.
Yeah.
So whatever happens, happens, and I'm open to anything, honestly. So I mean, I would fully make like a pop record at this point in my life. I feel like back then I thought it was not cool, but like even on this record, it's like again, I could reference that song Unholy. To me, that's like a Backstreet Boys meets Black Sabbath song, and I think that's what's kind of cool about it, and kind of part of the freedom why this record was so fun to make. So,
Well, that's why I'd asked if there was something, because what I was going to say is, do you feel like it's that it's not who you are currently, or that you're not versed enough in it to pull it off? And the other reason I wanted to ask is so eventually when the next record comes out or something comes along, I can be like, remember 3 years ago when you said you didn't think you could do X, Y, or Z, and here we are, you did it. You found your way through it.
right.
Because I always think that idea of growth, even when you think it's a limitation, maybe it's not. Maybe it's something now you'll think of and find your way through it and be like, oh, I'm really glad I kind of challenged myself to maybe incorporate something that I didn't think I was capable of at the time.
Yeah. Well, never say never. It's tough to predict what the future is going to hold, and definitely, the more you grow, the more your taste changes, and you never know where you're going to end up. Like I said, if I talked to myself 10, 15 years ago and told younger Justin what I would be doing now, I would probably be like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? So that's a tough question to answer. We'll talk in 3 years and I'll let you know.
There we go. Last question for you. I know there's no shows on the horizon right now but I'm sure lots of touring ahead this year. And what can people expect in 2025 from you guys? And what would you like to plug, socials or anything else here at the end?
We're working on some stuff touring wise. We're gonna be announcing stuff in a little bit, so just keep an eye out for that. Nothing I could say at the moment. Obviously, I hope you listen to the record. Check it out. It's called The Program. Once again, we're everywhere. You can find anybody now. We're on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. It's all just at Broken Love Music. We're on YouTube, just Broken Love. If you spell our name the correct way, BRKN Love, which was very stupid, but of course we're
no SEO results are key in this day and age. That's why mine's spelled this way.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you spell our name correctly, everything will pop up. If you just put it into Google, you'll get it all. So just check us out if you can, and I appreciate it if you do.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. Like I said, massive fan of this record. I'm really glad that it was kind of presented to me at the right time, because this is probably going to be one of my summertime jams. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much.
So that was my conversation with Justin. Want to thank him once again for coming on, and kind of allowing me to punish him, like I said, about how much, this new Broken Love record, how much I really enjoy it. And I really do hope you guys at the end of this take the time to go listen to the record. I hope I at least get one message from somebody, a DM or something, just being like, I had never heard of this band. I really love that record. I'm excited to go see them. Something. Because I think this band really deserves some more eyes and ears on it. And if I can do anything to help that, that would be tremendous. Sometimes I do feel like at times that is what this show is able to do, is kind of put bands maybe you're not aware of onto your radar, and now they become a new favorite of yours, or at least a band that you share with other people, and it kind of just becomes like a thing for you and your friends. I was kind of reminded of all of that since recording these episodes and now doing this. I went and saw Refused as when I'm recording this last week with my two best friends, and there was just something to be said, because like Quicksand opened, and the band, my friends had never seen Quicksand. I don't even think until that show, I don't think they've even heard of the band. I have been fortunate through other people who were into bands of that era and just kind of that ilk, knowing Quicksand and knowing how important they were. And thankfully, over the years since they've come back, getting to see them a couple of times. So I knew what I was in for. I know they're a rad band, but it was really amusing to just, at separate times, both of my friends being like, "These guys are really fucking good." And you're like, "Yeah, it's Quicksand. Of course they're good." And then I remember, and this is such a tell. My friend just handed me his phone and just kind of pointed at them. I was like, "Add them to my my iTunes playlist or whatever." And to me, that is so fun. I really enjoy showing new bands to people, or an older band that maybe someone's never heard, and showing them and having them become fans of something. I just did it recently with Refused. I was wearing a Refused hoodie the other day that I bought at the show, and someone's like, "What's that band? They look cool." Because I bought the hoodie, and it has an older image, early 90s style hardcore hoodie, which that graphic, that aesthetic will always be awesome to me. There's a band I like and they have a hardcore quote unquote merch, I'm going to fucking love it. But it was a thing where I was like, oh, well, you probably have heard this song, you just don't know it. And then I played New Noise, and they're like, that song's awesome. Actually, a friend of mine, we went to go see Counterparts, and we were talking about just music. And, I think inevitably when you're such a music fan, you end up having these moments where you kind of get you create weird categories or questions to kind of pull different things out of each other. And he was like, I love this song because I love this long build up to get to the thing. And then it just explodes from there. And he goes what's one of your favorite songs like that? And I was like, well, I mean, right out the gate, I'm thinking New Noise by Refused. That's a good 45 seconds or so leading up to this thing of, Can I Scream? And then bam. And then especially when you see it live, it hits so hard. And I played it for him. He's like, that's exactly what I was talking. Who is this? I've never heard of this band. So it's a thing to me. I really love being able to showcase new music, even if it's not new music in the grand scheme of this shit's been out for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. I love showing people music that they don't know and watching them become fans in real time. And I really do hope that happens with this episode with Broken Love. I really do love this record, and I really do hope that you take the time to check it out and you enjoy it and it becomes your new favorite thing as well. Or if you're a fan of this band already, well, fuck you for not telling me that this band existed and showing me based on, the different types of bands I have on this show all the time. All that said, let's start wrapping up this episode. If you would like to keep up with Broken Love, and also just for the sake of reference, all this is in the show notes, but if I'm referring to Broken Love, it's just going to be exactly how it is, BRKN. So when I say this, just search for that. First of all, just go to Broken Love, broken-love.com. That'll be your landing page for tour dates, merch, anything and everything you need to know about the band. Otherwise, go to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Broken Love Music. If you'd like to keep up with Justin, you can find him at his namesake over on Instagram, Justin. And I might be wrong with this pronunciation. You know how I am. Pretty awful and a stickler for him, but I believe it's Benlolo, Benlolo. That's where you can find him as well. Otherwise, you can follow us, the podcast, on Brewspeak Pod on all your major social media platforms. Email me at brutallyspeaking@gmail.com. Rate, review, subscribe. You know why that is important. Do such wherever you can. Word of mouth has been great. The integrity issue episode, that has been doing crushing and been doing really great. A lot of people were really stoked on it. just as much as I was. I still can't believe that happened, nor how it happened. But that's just how things happen when you I guess allow. I don't even know. I like I said, I'm still in shock that fucking happened. It's been almost a month now since it did, but you guys just heard it. So thanks so much for the support of that. And speaking of support, thanks to Rockabilia. Head on over to rockabilia.com. Use our code Brutally at checkout and take 10% off your total purchase order. I say it week in and week out. They do really awesome collabs. They have so many items, not just straight up merch, but like candles, lava lamps, puzzles, patches, posters, so many different things. I am sure if you have a band that you are into, there is going to be something for that band. And if there's not, well, keep checking because I'm sure they're going to have something at some point. And I just can't thank the guys and gals that work over there enough for all their continued support of the show over the years, especially leading up to episode 500. It has been a crazy journey with them and on the show. And for the Brutally Speaking podcast, I am John, and I'll see you all next week where I have Tyler and Brock of Paradise Slaves joining me. That was a fun one. I'm excited to get that one out to you. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you next time.